And again, if she gets here 15 minutes after, we'll hold her until you finish.
Okay.
To do her after you. And that's a different race team, so it's fine. So let's go ahead and start, and let me know when the camera's ready. It's rolling. So thank you, and welcome to this interview process, the endorsement interview process for the Memphis City Council. We have Councilwoman Patrice Robinson, who is running for re-election. And I want to welcome you to the CA Editorial Board and start with this question. And to start, would you explain who you are, what you're running for the viewers out in TV land? Why are you running for re-election, and what would you hope to accomplish if you're re-elected?
First, I'm Patrice Robinson, and I am so pleased and honored to be have served the city of Memphis in the capacity of the District 3 representative on the City Council. My goal on the council has always been, number one, to ensure that we have safe and clean communities, to look at the economic development in our communities, especially the distribution of the funds across the district. And thirdly, it's so important to me, just in my own district, that we create opportunities in our district for economic development, for opportunities for our children, as well as having the structure in place so that we can communicate with one another through neighborhood associations, neighborhood watch groups, and keeping the community engaged and on the forefront of what's going on in Memphis and Shelby County.
So in your district, which includes Whitehaven, you've got several areas of your community that have had closures of stores or malls that are nearly closed down in cases. What would you advocate for in your district if you're re-elected to jumpstart economic development, particularly in areas like Whitehaven, which once and still are great beacons for the community, but had much more retail commercial activity years ago?
I have two areas in my community in the same situation. I also go all the way out to Hickory Ridge Mall in the Hickory Hill area.
Yeah.
So we have two malls. Both of them are open. One is actually a little more viable, and that's the one in Southland Mall. But this is what I have been sharing with the community and in my district, is that I have done, to me, a good job of sharing with investors, with people who are interested in coming into our community. I have done 2 bus tours and put the finance people in there, the venture capitalists, and everybody else that's interested in knowing about our community and seeing it from our eyes. There's some things that we're going to have to do as a community to attract people to want to come back to our community. One is clean up. We can't expect the city to clean up every piece of paper that we throw on the ground. 2, we're going to have to act like we want people to come back. And what I mean by that, I've had a lot of conversations with business owners, restaurant owners, and the reason that they've left is because more went out the back door than came in the front door. So that means that I'm going to have to work with the community on communicating what it is that we have to do to attract people to our community. But we have great development going on right now. Buildings are coming up, streets are being paved, Southwood Mall is refurbished and open again, and it's open to the community. We're allowed as a council for Elvis Presley Enterprises to expand and bring more jobs. We finally, after 10 years, have gotten the Elvis Presley pavement on track, and it's rolling. We've got a new Wendy's coming up on Elvis Presley Boulevard out in the Hickory Hill area. We have a couple of new businesses out there as well. It is so exciting. But what most people don't know, in District 3, I have approximately 42% of all industry. So I've got all these trucking companies in my district that's tearing up the roads, and I'm talking to the city administrators about, we have a paving, you pave roads every 26 years, but when you have 18 wheelers on your roads like I do, 26 years is not often enough. But we don't want them to leave. We really don't. We have new Amazon in the area, that's in the Oak Haven area, that's what we call it, or East Haven. So we're really excited about attracting new businesses to the community and ensuring that we as a community embrace them, but we also want them to embrace us. And we do have the first community-based agreement with Elvis Presley
I was
Enterprises.
going to ask about that. Can you tell us about that agreement
Yeah.
and how
Yeah.
it was crafted, and what benefit do you think will come to the community over time?
So originally, we had a lot of back and forth conversation, and the contract hasn't been signed yet, so we want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay.
Because we have a large scope here, but they have promised that on every ticket sold, that the community would get $1.50 from every ticket. And that money, we're working on the language, because we're having neighborhood associations and CDCs competing over who's going to take control of those dollars. So, so that's
community, it'll become community money and a community fund.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And it's supposed to be for community development. And we just don't want it frivolously spent. We want to make sure that we're having an impact, and we can track how those dollars are spent and what value it brings to the community. But Elvis Presley Enterprises really been working well with me on that. And they have always given something to the community, but I told them it doesn't help to give, and nobody knows what you're doing. So I asked them, give me an idea of what have you been doing in our community. And they shared with me that when the football team at Whitehaven won the state championship, they brought the championship rings. They paid for them.
Okay.
But that's something that the community should know. So I told them, but if you allow the community to share those dollars, we could tell the story about how those dollars are spent in our community. We don't go down to visit with Elvis Presley Enterprises all the time, but we're using the hotel now, we're using the facilities, we're visiting the sound stage, we're renting it. So it is becoming a part of our heritage in our community.
Is that a model that can be used elsewhere in Memphis for other large-scale development projects, that you want to have a connection and linkage from the project back to the community, whatever community it is?
Yes, I think that's very important. And I know it's a responsibility of all companies to give back to the community, but it's more valuable and it's more intentional when you have a community-based agreement. And that's the first one in the state of Tennessee.
Right. Now, just stay on this topic briefly one more time and turn it over to my colleague, Tanya Weathersby. Tell me a bit more about your view of pilots and tax increment financing, which of course is used in Whitehaven with Elvis Presley Enterprises member reserves, as well as other forms of economic incentives used to lure companies into Memphis. What's your view on the effectiveness of those programs, and what would you want to do differently in your next term?
So let me say this first. I believe pilots are important because we're having to compete with other cities for all the industries. But my concern in Memphis, Tennessee, first of all, is that when we look at our pilots, what we're asking people to participate in, number one, should not be the role of another group called EDGE, and that's just my personal opinion. The citizens elected the members of the Memphis City Council to take on that responsibility. And I believe that is our responsibility. And to allow another group to do it, to me, is so important to our community. As a member of the Shelby County and Memphis City School Boards, we never gave away our authority and power to another organization. And that's what concerns me about what we're doing right now with the EDGE board. I'm not saying they're not valuable, I'm just saying that the citizens elected us to do that work and make those decisions. The second thing that concerns me is that when we say that here are the agreements that we make, the checks and balances and how they're looked at. When you're working with private companies and organizations, they don't readily give you any of their statements. They just say, you know, we have hired 100 people. I'm just using that as an example. And this is what they look like. But I want to know a little more about the demographics. Are the people living in Memphis and Shelby County? I want to know what percentage of the people that you've hired are making $50,000 or more. We need to be more intentional in our conversations as we talk about pilots and have some way of following up other than just a spreadsheet and somebody telling me this is the truth. I need a little more responsible reporting. Is that clear?
It is.
Okay.
I'm going to turn it over to Tanya to speak for me.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you talking about pilots and accountability, because one of the things that I'm curious about, we talk about poverty in Memphis. We know that Memphis has like a very high poverty rate amongst young people, a lot of disconnected youth. And then we talk about jobs, being brought here by pilots and things. How much do you think the council, or you as a council person, should attach job creation for youth to and training for youth to the granting of these pilots?
I believe that as we listen to the presentations, depending on how many jobs they're bringing, we need to determine, just like you do in any other contract, what percentage you want minority participation, what percentage youth do you want to participate. But I think what's important in our community is that we have people crossing the state lines to get jobs, and that's depleting jobs for us as well. We really need to be more intentional about bringing up our community, and when we get where we need to be, then we can share the wealth. But you can't share the wealth until you get where you need to be.
Their retort would probably be, well, people here don't have the training, so there's some way you could, attach training to the pilots. Okay, well, how are you going to train them?
So let me share this with you.
Okay.
My personal background is in training and organizational development. Every organization should be responsible for training. I don't care how much education an individual has. For each company, they have a particular way they want to do things. They can train their own people. That's why they pay training specialists at these companies. That is a cop-out to me, and I'm just being honest.
Oh, yeah.
I know, and I have worked with companies across the city of Memphis for almost 30 years. When young people come to the table and they need training, they can be trained. All children can learn, all adults can learn. You just got to take the time to do it. I know companies, when we went from doing everything on paper and measuring, writing maps, to using technology, that they sometimes had to bring GED teachers in to help so that people could learn to read, how they can learn to use a measuring tool or whatever it was. But we cannot blame that on K-12 education, colleges. I'm just being honest. The businesses that come here, we have very talented people in Memphis, very talented. And if they use the tools that they have in the toolbox, I believe it'll work. I think they're using that as an excuse. That's the Patrice Robinson story, and I'm sticking to it.
So speaking of workers and workforce development in Memphis, that's been a big topic and a big issue with some of the other candidates, including the mayoral candidates who've come through here, and it really reflects the need for us to have a workforce that's ready for the economy now and in the future, trained to do those kinds of jobs. And maybe if you can point to the community college system as a place to really focus more effort, and also vocational education.
Yes.
How would you, in your role as council member re-elected, how would you approach trying to make sure we have a trained workforce and workforce development areas that are appropriate for what we need in the future?
To me, the number one thing is to look at what industry is currently here. So who do we have to feed? What skill sets are needed? And then ensuring that the colleges, universities, and even our K-12 organization here in Memphis and Shelby County understand that these are the skills that we need children to do. But I have been doing this all the time because I am an educator. I've been on the school board. I have not detached myself, and I am communicating with them all the time. I also think that more opportunities for young people to have internships is invaluable. They could not pay for the experience that you can get from being in an internship program.
Could you tell us, given your experience at both the school board as well as the council currently, tell us what 2 issues are of most concern for you? What keeps you up at night? And what would be the things you want to focus on first if you were elected?
What keeps me up at night?
And the 2 biggest issues.
Okay.
They can be one and the same or different.
Right. What keeps me up at night, and you all won't believe this, is the calls that I get about people dumping trash in our community.
Blight's a big issue.
Blight is a big issue, and it's so multifaceted. You have people who are renting properties, and we have set outs, but it's not. What's a set out? A set out is when you have been evicted from the property,
Gotcha.
and they take all your belongings and they put them on the curb.
Yeah.
They have to put them in bags, but your community will come by and take it out of the bag, go through, take whatever they want. Yes.
At that point, it's trash.
Then it's trash. Then guess what happens when the wind blows? It's your trash, your trash, and that's a problem. That's something I'm working on right now to get some ordinances around that about how we can containerize it. The state law says that it has to be available to the people who lived in that home. I think it's up to 48 hours. But it doesn't have to be in a plastic bag. It could be in some more stable container where if somebody went through it, it wouldn't go all the way through the neighborhood. A second thing about the community in which we live, people won't put up their trash cans. When we have all these tire companies, we've got to get some control on all these fix the tire. They're all over the city. They're everywhere, and they're, instead of taking them to the proper location for disposal, they're disposing it in empty homes, in areas that are remote. I'm having to put up cameras everywhere trying to catch people dumping tires. We've got to get some control on what happens to tires and incentivize our community to do the right thing. That creates blight as well. And we've got to also talk to our community and encourage them to invest in Memphis. We don't need any more people buying our homes and property from China. We need to invest in our own.
Investors, real estate investors?
Yes.
Is that happening in a big way in both Hickory Hill as well as
Whitehaven? Yes. In my district, we had the basically for years the highest home ownership for African American people in basically the whole state of Tennessee. And I see those numbers changing every day, and it's frightening.
Gotcha. Talk about crime for a minute. It's been a top issue and a top topic for all the folks that come through the editorial board, and particularly as regards to the murder rate, which is on par this year to be about 200 people, which is still a worrisomely high number, although not as high as 2016 when it made a record. What would you do as a re-elected council member to address violent crime and to try and reverse some of those trends?
My plan for addressing violent crime is to create peace coalitions. And what I mean by peace coalitions, and I've already contacted the NAACP to coordinate with me once a quarter. We have some rallies in the community and talk about the Kingian method, and that's about how you operate in peace in the community and within yourself. I've already contacted the school district. They have 6 people already on board to assist that have been trained and certified to teach the method and allow the children to participate as well. We cannot put enough police officers on the street. We're going to have to start policing ourselves, have to start learning how to handle our pain and anger, and redirect that in a more positive direction. And I believe that as we have these conversations in the community and we start talking to people like they're people and not at them, that we'll start seeing some change. But we're going to have to change the way that we do business. In the past, when I was young, neighbors talked to each other, they knew each other. I am struggling now to get neighbors to even want to be in a neighborhood association, or do you know your next door neighbor? We have become so isolated that I believe that as a council person, and a leader in the community, I can encourage people to start talking to one another, working with one another, and protecting one another, but with some help as it relates to how do we do this and how do we do it on a daily basis. And we're going to also include ACEs, that's the adverse childhood experiences, so that we can understand why people react the way they do and how we can change our reaction to that so that we can offset some of all the violence that's going on in our community.
How do you in your community balance the needs of those folks who are long-time multi-generational residents of places like Whitehaven, Hickory Hill, who were there when those communities were, as you put it earlier, beacons for the entire state, not just Memphis, with folks who are either renters or just moving in, and they may have a different set of needs. You mentioned the blight. I don't see a lot of blight in the Bluebird area. So how would you balance those two needs in those communities?
So what we have been doing with our community associations, when I visit with them, I go to their meetings all the time. I'm asking them to visit with new people who move into their community and start welcoming people, not just homeowners, into your associations, the renters as well, so they can feel a part of the community. Tell them what our expectations are, how we cut our grass, when we do it, when our trash cans should go out. Just some common things that they need to know. I've asked them to embrace their new neighbors and share with them. I know our young people don't know anything about cutting grass. My own children don't. My husband has always done it. So we've got young people now that are living in homes that have no idea about the upkeep and have no training. So we are now, as a community, going to have to embrace them.
Okay. Tanya, I'll defer to you for the next question, if you have one.
Yes. What drives you to want to continue on the council? I mean, what defining moment? I always ask this question. What defining moment did you have in your life that made you say, okay, I've been on the council for a while, I think I want to run for re-election? What is it? What moment hit you that made you realize that you should stay put?
So my defining moment was when I was pulling together my last two newsletters, and we were reflecting on the work that we have done over the last 3 years. I've made sure that my community has had information via a newsletter that's every quarter. I've had community meetings, not just one in District 3, because I have 3 distinct communities. I have 3 town hall meetings every quarter so that I can address just their issues. But now that I see that we are seeing the fruit of our labor, there's so much more that we can do and complete. When I got on the council, we only had 4 speed humps, 4%, not 4%
Wow.
of the speed humps in the whole city, and now we're up to 8%. We only had 3 cameras in my whole district, and now I have placed 30 cameras in the district, plus my neighborhood associations have placed cameras in their communities, and they're proud of their work. I know that we can do a lot more. We have a CDC that's up and running now, the Greater Whitehaven Economic Redevelopment Corporation. That's awesome for our community. We're attracting new businesses, and African American and minority owned. We are on a trajectory of change, and we're moving the needle, and everybody feels the momentum, and they're getting on board and excited. And I can't leave them at this time. That was the defining moment for me when I look. I said, we're really making progress.
So in Whitehaven, that's where Elvis Presley Graceland is.
Yes, yes, yes.
So I got my other question is, where's Elvis, and have you seen him lately?
So let me tell you this, that Elvis is alive and well.
Okay. Elvis, and have you seen him lately?
His spirit is live and well.
Now, that's
And
a
it's
question
throughout the
we've not
district.
heard in this setting. That's
So,
pretty
but
good.
I want to share with you, we had some young people that learned about the community, and they interviewed the elders of our community, and they did a play, and they pretended like they went back in time, like in a time talk, and they told the story. And they, our young people don't know anything about Elvis, but they got to learn. But they talked about Al Green. He has a church, an international church in our community.
Wow.
My community on Sunday
When
morning.
have you seen him?
Oh, I see him quite often.
I want to. I'm have to go and
Yes, visit him.
Yeah.
No
Yes,
church
yes,
lady.
yes. Uh-huh.
So with that, I'm going to ask you the final question, and you have 2 minutes to answer this question like the first question, and that is, what have you learned about yourself and your district and city throughout this campaign?
So first, I've learned about myself. I'm a lot more patient than I thought I was to do this job, and it's actually a job, and it's not a part-time. That's what they say it is. It's actually to do it with fidelity. It's actually full-time. I believe that's what I've learned about me. I'm really very patient. I really am. 2, I've learned about my community, Whitehaven, Oak Haven, and Hickory Hill, that we're very proud owners. We're really in tune to our communities, and we support our children. 2, we're very distinct communities, and I haven't gotten to the place where they want to work together yet. They want to remain in their own section. But what I have learned is that at some point, I believe they'll understand we're better together so that we can move our agenda forward. And my goal for District 3 is that we be a beacon and a model in Memphis, Tennessee for other like communities. What I have learned about the city of Memphis, we all want the same things. Now that's something that really surprised me. When you hear people complaining, they complain about different things, but what they're singing from the same hymn book. We want to be recognized. We want to make sure that whatever funding is available, it is shared equitably, and they want to make sure that we provide. We don't want Volkswagen service in Memphis. We want Cadillac service on Volkswagen money.
Well, with that final note, thank you for your